should go. I want you to go with me. Well, I have to go because I have to. But it's a great chance for you to meet more of the neighbors and you'll see just how great they are. And, well, the whole event is kind of for us, or for what I did. That means it's for you, too. Remember when we met at the vets last year? Remember how excited the receptionist was when I walked in with Ollie? She was all like really bouncy and going, so you got him, great. I guess you don't remember. You were too sad. The loss. I know what that's like. I've had to put down a dog or two. Ollie knew too, even though he was only a pup. He could tell how sad you were, and that's why he tried to climb up your pants leg, and you just picked him up and you stuck your whole face in his fur. He knew. Dogs know. That was Ollie's first vet visit. I had just rescued him. He still had the scars from a choke chain. Your guy was a rescue too, right? Those guys, they know. It took me a long time to get that. Back when I first moved here, when I first started living alone, I didn't even know about a house, much less a dog, how to fix a light switch or even change a light bulb. And there was no YouTube. There's a lot to be said for moving to a town where you know no one and all of it is bad. But I bought the house and moved in and spent a lot of time going to every free how-to workshop at Ace Hardware. How to fix that light switch, how to grout tile, all the how-tos. And the Ace guy turned out to be really great, but it took a long time. At first I thought maybe it was me, my haircut or how I dressed. It seemed hostile, but it wasn't me. People were just wary because they should have been. Things weren't safe, even though it all looked almost suburban. I didn't take my walks at night, only in the day when more people were around. I was on one of those walks when I saw this other walker up ahead, a tall man, basketball tall, walking his dog. And they reached the corner and all of a sudden turned around and I smiled and said hi as they walked past me, didn't wait for the hello back and kept walking. I stopped when I heard, "Hey lady, where are you going?" He looked so worried. "You should probably turn around," he says. "Walk toward the park. Gets rough down that end. Really, turn around. The park is nice." And basketball man and dog practically forced me toward the park. He turns out to be Charles. He and his wife are in the Rambler 2 houses down. The couple with Max, the Weimaraner. Their dog back then was a Weimaraner too. They did dog shows for a while, but didn't like the people. But anyway, I tried to ask Charles about why I shouldn't go to the other end of the street. But he moved the conversation onto other things, like when did I plan on mowing my lawn? When I could afford a lawnmower, which was not soon enough for him, apparently. He loaned me theirs. My yard had started to resemble a wildlife habitat. Their daughter was just 3 weeks old then. She's getting her PhD now in wildlife or habitat, something eco. But anyway, I stayed curious about the rough end. Since our street is one way, I drove through that end every day on the way out of the neighborhood. The next trip to Safeway, I drove very slow, looking for signs of badness. It looked normal, except for being a little more upscale than at my end of the block. So I decided to chance an evening walk down the bad side. I got almost to the end when I heard this dog, and not barking, almost more like screeching from someone's backyard. And I'm standing there on the sidewalk trying to figure where to start looking when out of nowhere I am being pushed down the street. It's this old guy, small and wizened, you could say. Or at least back then you could say that. Now I guess you say senior citizen. "Where's the dog live?" I ask. "Never mind the dog," he says. No amount of reporting will result in anything but trouble for you. You just got to accept how he treats the dog. That was Fred. No, I told you about Fred, the actor guy who said he was more famous than Mickey Rooney, the one who died a few months before you and I started going out. The bad dog owner had been living next door to Fred forever, owning and mistreating dogs the whole time. The dogs would howl and cry, and every neighbor who reported him had their tires slashed, or fires started in their recycle bin, or their own dogs disappeared. Nothing happened to the bad dog owner. He was somehow above the law. And this dog was a young, big black lab. Never walked, never taken inside. He escaped once, but the guy dragged him home and beat him. I was outraged. But I didn't do anything. And 2 weeks later, the dog escaped again and was hit by a car and killed in front of his house. Dog suicide. Humanity let down another dog. But what could we have done? We weren't superheroes. And I crept past the bad dog owner's house every day for the next few weeks. He wouldn't dare get another dog. So imagine my horror when, walking past his house, I heard the unmistakable sound of a puppy howl coming from the yard. It was evening, cool, clear, no one on the street. And then I looked over the fence. The yard was filled with big piles of dog waste, from the poor dead dog for sure. Because this dog tethered to a stake, no tree, no grass, no dog house, no water bowl. This dog was a tiny, fuzzy black ball of puppy. I let myself in and took the puppy. Well, it wasn't quite that simple. Her collar was bolted to the chain. My shaking hands somehow used my key as a screwdriver to loosen the screw that held the bolt. The puppy was quiet, like she knew I meant no harm. Even when I stuffed her into my jacket pocket, which is when I found out about her gigantic puppy feet, one of which was dangled out of the pocket. I reached the gate and then glanced around one more time. And across the street, I saw this lady in her window, and she pulled back her curtain and watched. It turns out this was Eileen. You know, the old lady, who gives us snow peas and okra and tells us stories about her exploits in the war. I waved, and I tried to act like I was official, carefully closing the gate, expecting any moment to hear her shout, "Hey, lady." We got home unstopped. Of course, there was no dog food. So it was scrambled eggs for dinner, and a bath, and an after dark backyard pee. And soon enough, we hear the bad dog owner out on the street shouting, "Majestic, you bitch, where are you, Majestic?" What kind of a name is Majestic for a tiny little doggy? Maybe it was her big feet. But the second Majestic heard her name, or heard her name out of that man's mouth, she ran under the table, trembled. A trembling puppy will turn anybody into a superhero. And right then, I promised Midget, new name, sounds a little like the old name, but not so highfalutin. I promised Midget that she would never have to return to that sewer of a backyard. And I wake up the next morning with puppy tongue exploring my ear. What have I done? What in the world am I going to do? This was before the internet, before the dark web, before everything. Where would I get advice on dog rescue? The veterinarian. They know everything. The car was in the garage, then, like now, connected to the house. No exposure there. But ever try to make an exuberant puppy stay put? And we had to drive right past her old house. But she dived under my feet as we passed her ex-yard. And it stayed down until I needed to use the brake pedal. That was my first trip to our neighborhood vet. Same guy as now, just much younger. And inside, Midget wiggled and barked. And the receptionist, same receptionist, but before she married the vet. Anyway, she glanced at us, turned pale, and ran and locked the front door and escorted us immediately to an examining room. And the vet didn't even pretend. He opened his arms and Midget leapt right into them. He cuddled her, all the while whispering to me, there ought to be a law against him. His last dog had 3 broken teeth. He looked at me with such anger in his face that I stepped back. What's your plan, lady? My plan? I had no plan. You want my advice? Get back in your car and drive to Oregon. You do not want to be messing with her owner. All right. So I didn't take action immediately. I dithered as I tossed the dish towel for Midget to chase around the living room. There were laws to protect me. The puppy liked me. The vet, well, I'm not sure that he liked people at all, but he liked Midget. And how dangerous could a suburban homeowner be? Dangerous enough to be feared by every single one of the neighbors. When the doorbell rang, Midget ran into the bathroom. Be quiet in there, girl, I whispered as I went to the front door, took a deep breath, and opened it. It was the mailman. He handed me the mail, all of which could have fit in the mailbox, and then he didn't leave. He said, I don't know if you know anything about a missing dog, but if you do know anything about a missing dog, you should probably take her as far away as possible. And then we both heard Midget whimper in the bathroom. And the mailman couldn't get away fast enough. That was it. No more dithering. I tossed my wallet, checkbook, and a few daily medicines into a big purse, picked up Midget and the car keys and a map of Oregon. Remember maps? The only problem was getting past the bad dog owner's house, and that was fine. One little bump in the road, depending on who you ask. About 100 miles south, past all the traffic, I was overcome with an urge to have the car washed at an interstate truck stop. You know the unmistakable urge, just have to wash the car. Midget loved the giant brushes and the whooshing waters, scrubbing away the accumulated detritus. I turned on public radio and let myself breathe. I could barely hear the news over her barking and the car wash noise. Some suspected crime boss was dead, run over right in front of his house, a hit and run. Police questioning all of the neighbors on our street to see if anybody saw something on that bright spring Saturday morning. And later that night at the motel, I saw the TV people interviewing potential witnesses. Fred explained, usually I'm out pulling weeds, but this morning NPR was playing excerpts from The Sound of Music. I was one of the little Von Trapps in the Broadway touring version, you know. I missed the whole accident. Eileen, across the street, was just opening her curtains. He leapt right in front of the car. It looked like suicide to me. Suicide by car, I think they call it. Then Charles. There's an awful lot of nighttime traffic at that house, late at night. Probably one of them ran him down. Maybe the traffic will cease now that he's deceased. No one could identify the car or the driver. The fuss went on for another 8 hours. And then it stopped. Midget and I went back home. The vet was happy to see Midget. The mailman kept delivering mail. Eileen started with the snow peas and the okra. Fred started inviting himself along on the dog walks until he died. And other people started making a regular thing out of walking dogs on our street. The birth of the dog parade. Well, in any case, I got to keep my promise. Midget didn't have to go back to that yard. She turned out to be the first of many, and the biggest of many. She's why they call it the majestic dog pageant. Oh, come here, Ollie boy. You love a parade, don't you? You go. The parade is to honor Midget and all the rescued dogs. And I guess me. No one says, but everyone who was around back then knows. I'm Grand Marshal, and my dog gets to be the dog Grand Marshal every year. So you see, you have to go. You're part of the family now, an honorary dog rescuer. Because now you know. Oh, come on. It'll be fun. The three of us get to ride in the float